When I was told that, there was a period of time where I was alone from being told that you had had a stroke. I don't remember exactly the exact logistics and timing of it, but I remember that I was told you had a stroke, and then there was a period of time where I was alone. And I remember just like literally bawling. And that is by far the most alone I've ever felt in my life. Because even if I had had my family by my side, which I didn't at that time, I didn't have anybody because, there was no reason for anybody to have come yet because we didn't think it was a stroke, right? Well, I did, but they didn't. So I was alone and it was just so isolating. And I think I called Carrie. I'm pretty sure. And I told her and I just sobbed and I said, I'm so alone. I'm so alone. I'm so lonely. I have no one. I'm alone. And that was when she called Christina and told Christina she needed to come be with me, which happened, she got there later after work that night. But that sticks with me a lot because it was a deep, deep, dark moment for me. But then they wheeled you back in and I was balancing talking to Leah, talking to Cody, talking to Leah's friends who she had sent. Well, her one friend. She had sent one friend over to, what I thought was to comfort me. But she had sent one friend over and I gave her a hug and I just wept and I said, sorry, this is the first time I'm meeting you. And she's like, it's okay, cry, whatever. And then I remember telling the doctors like they could share with her whatever, needed to be shared. Just again, giving them permission. I knew I worked, in medicine enough to understand HIPAA. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody had their selves covered and could talk, I think they would have anyways. But so she was talking to them and she was able to ask them questions. One of which was it a hemorrhagic or an ischemic stroke? Which, do you know what that means?
I don't know the difference.
You wouldn't need to necessarily unless you're a nerd like I am when it comes to medicine. But so an ischemic stroke is a clot and a hemorrhagic stroke would be a bleed. So you can have a stroke from bleeding in your brain or you can have a stroke from a blood clot and that would be ischemic. So yours was ischemic. So she had specifically said, is it ischemic or hemorrhagic? And they said it was ischemic because you didn't have a bleed. They had already ruled that out on the CT scan the night before. Anything you remember specifically about, talk to me about when they told you it was a stroke, because were you upset that I didn't tell you? I didn't know how to tell you. I'm going to be honest. I feel guilty about this, but I kind of took the coward's way out a little bit in telling you. My brain was so like firing on so many cylinders. Like I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to tell you. And you weren't in your right mind. And I think that was the biggest part of it, is because you weren't in your right mind. I had no earthly idea how to communicate with you and tell you. And so I asked them to tell you. Did that bother you?
I'll be honest, I don't remember much of that time, like that part of it. I don't remember who told me or what until you just told me now.
Okay.
So I guess it didn't bother me that much. I don't know. Maybe it did at the time. I'm not sure.
I think you were more bothered by the fact that you had a stroke than you were by who was delivering the news. It was the resident that told you.
I think I asked him if he was joking, because I was kind of in a joke, I think, mood probably that night some. And I was just
it was afternoon by this point, like the very next day.
Yeah, well, I probably, like I normally would with something like that, I probably said something like, you got to be kidding, right? Like, I know this is a joke.
Yeah.
And probably saying something
I don't know, because I wasn't
lines.
in the room.
Yeah,
Again, I was a coward.
I probably said something like that, and he was like, no, man, you do. And
it was the resident that told you.
Yeah.
And then, did you talk to Cody? I think you did.
I think I may have talked to him a little bit, but I remember, I think before that, though, that I guess it was the resident or somebody. I don't know if it was before that, but they showed me a photo of it. Like they showed me that. I do remember that because
it was.
I think he.
I don't remember which one showed you the photo, but one of them did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was big. It was a big spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I put you on the phone with Cody.
Maybe. Yeah.
And so Cody, was he able to help? Do you remember anything about that conversation with him?
I really don't. I don't remember anything about it at all, which is kind of weird because I do remember bits and pieces of some of that stuff. But no, I don't remember that conversation at all, which is kind of crazy, but I do not.
So from there, it was kind of just like a blur, like nothing really crazy happened. We just waited for a bed in neuro ICU to move you to. And so I don't really remember much. I don't think it was very long that we got moved from that room to the next. Do you remember the rooms? Like, do you remember like visually the rooms?
No, not really.
Really? Nothing?
Not really.
That's interesting. I remember them like it was yesterday. Every single one, all three of them. 4. There's 4. Yeah, so they moved us to the neuro ICU room where we would be for the next like 4 or 5 days. And family came in. Christina came in. I know when I saw her, I again just broke down crying. She brought dinner. I had no appetite. So it may have been the next day that the neurovascular surgeon came in and the stroke attending came in. And they said it was a carotid web, which was basically like an overgrowth of tissue or like a web of some sort. I'm still not sure exactly the mechanics of it. To be honest, I've never even looked it up. Have you?
Mm-mm.
I don't know why. I've never felt the need to look it up. But basically, it was in your right carotid artery, and it was slowing down the blood flow. It was just an abnormality there, kind of causing a traffic jam and setting up the perfect environment for a clot to form. And so it threw a clot. And they did say that it was, the perfect place in your brain if you're going to have one. I will include above in some text or below, I don't know, what part of the brain it was. But apparently it was the best spot. I don't know. You're walking and talking. So, I mean, it definitely could have been worse, and we're blessed. But they walked through the options. And I'm sure you remember this part where the neurovascular surgeon told us that we had two options. One was that he could get a stent put in his artery, his carotid, or he could have an open endarterectomy, and they could go in and literally just cut the carotid. The stent would require lifelong blood thinners, which he wasn't apparently necessarily going to need, depending on what the results of his hematology labs were. And the endarterectomy would lead to, or could lead to, another stroke. So there was a 5% chance of a repeat stroke with the endarterectomy. But there are significant risks with being on blood thinners for your entire life. If you're in a car accident, you're on blood thinners, bad news. So, honestly, we just left it up to him to decide ultimately. I know I told him, the doctor, ultimately we will do what you think is best, because we don't know the best option here.
Yeah.
So I was scared about the 5% chance of a repeat stroke. Were you?
I felt better about that than I was the second option where the stent was put in.
Really?
I didn't want blood thinners for the rest of my life. Because I've got a family member that are on them.
Mm.
So I see that, and I was not a fan of wanting to be on that whatsoever.
Is it more so just because of the inconvenience if you cut yourself shaving, or?
Well, a lot of that, yeah, is inconvenience too, but there's risks even above that, that was kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. So I would just rather, with a 5% chance, to me, that's low enough where let's just get it done right. And sure, there's a chance, but again, there's a chance I get off of this couch and walk out the door and I get hit by a car.
Okay, well, you're not going outside tonight. So.
Well, I didn't say I was, but I'm just giving you an example of there's always a chance, that something can happen. Mm-hmm. And we can't really live our life based on that, because anything could happen anywhere. You could have your life planned out, and every step you think you're going to make is, you know what's going to happen. You don't. So to me, the 5% chance was nothing. Sure. Am I a little worried about it? Yeah. I remember at the time, I think my brain was like, well, okay, I'm about to go down and do this. There is a chance where I could have another one, and it would end up making it worse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could end up being wheelchair bound and all that type of stuff, not be able to communicate. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, I've got the kids that I had to worry about with that. So there was definitely a little bit of worry there, but for me, that was the option for me.
That was more so my worry about it, because I was on board with doing what the doctor recommended, because I didn't know, but it was scary to face a 5% chance, because we had already been told at that point that you would make 100% recovery. So we were going back to this place where you were going to be put under the knife, so to speak, and there was a 5% chance of having another stroke. And so it was kind of like, in my mind, I was thinking, we've survived, right? And now we're like, we could potentially go backwards, and then you could be in a much worse position. So that was my main fear. But it wasn't enough, obviously, to want the stent. I understood that wasn't a great option. Both were scary. The open endarterectomy was less scary. And so we opted for that, and surgery was going to be scheduled at some point. And so you were in the hospital for several days. I think it was just really a matter of scheduling. Mm-hmm. There's only so many neurovascular surgeons in the country. There's not very many, so they stay pretty busy. And He also has clinic, which, spoiler alert, he ended up being my doctor later on, which we will talk about in the next episode. So they're busy. They have clinic, they have surgery. There's not many of them. So yeah, we waited, and the surgery was on. It was on a Saturday. No, hold on.
It was on a
You went home
Saturday.
on a Sunday.
It was
So
on a
yes.
Saturday.
So yeah, it was on a Saturday. And so we were there. And what do you remember specifically about that time between? Because I know your memories are hazy, but what do you remember about the time between finding out you had a stroke, deciding that we were going to do the surgery, and then waiting?
I just remember family would come, every once in a while to see them, just waiting on. I mean, really, it was all leading up to the surgery. I don't remember too much about that in between it. I just remember being in the room and being bored. I mean, that's for sure. I was definitely bored that, during that time. But I do remember just seeing people as they'd come in, and then, I remember the kids came and I was able to see them, a couple times too. And then, after that, it was just really surgery.
Yeah.
All right. How about yourself? What do you remember about that?
The main thing that stuck out was the kids coming. Mom brought them, and, we spent time together, and you spent time with the kids. But the part about it that was the hardest for me was that when it was time for them to leave, I carried Mila as far as like the waiting room. So out of your hospital room, down the hallway, out the double doors towards the waiting room. And then Mom had to like pry her out of my arms. And she cried, "Mama," over and over and over again, all the way through the waiting room, down the hall to the elevators. And I heard it the whole time. And I turned around, I walked back through the double doors and just cried and 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 cried. So much so that I couldn't go back in your room like that. So I sat outside of your room, and I remember there was a nurse. I'd never seen her before, but she walked up to me and she just put her arm around me, and I cried on her shoulder, and I said, "I don't know you." And she said, "And I don't know you." But that meant a lot to me. That was a big thing. That was a big moment. Just such a comfort in that time. But I was able to go back in your room and, collected myself or whatever. And yeah, I mean, from there, it was just a waiting game.